This happened about 3 weeks ago. I had just moved to a quiet suburb to escape the city's chaos. Evening walks home along Maple Avenue were my new routine. I felt calm as I strolled past the same familiar houses and well-kept lawns. The sun set slowly, and the street lamps flickered to life. That peaceful feeling made me feel safe, but I couldn't shake off the odd things that happened. On my third walk, I suddenly felt strange. I had a sense I'd walked that path before. I shook it off and continued. Then, I noticed a figure in a window. It looked just like my friend from college. I stopped, heart racing. I thought maybe I was mistaken, but there was no denying that shape. After that, déjà vu followed me like a shadow. I walked past the corner store one evening and saw a stray cat. I paused to watch it dart into a bush. Laughter echoed nearby, but it felt distant, like it belonged to another world. I glanced back at the window, and there she was again. This time, she seemed to look right through me. I was unsettled, yet strangely drawn to her. I didn't understand why, so I turned and hurried away. I tried to change my route one night, hoping to escape those odd experiences. But somehow, I ended up back on Maple Avenue, as if something was pulling me back. The sky darkened, and the shadows deepened. I began to hear that laughter again. Panic settled in. My heart raced faster. I felt cold, and those whispered giggles surrounded me, growing louder, echoing in the silence. One evening, I approached my street again and looked up. There she was, my friend's silhouette. Was it really her? My legs felt heavy as I took a step closer, fighting the urge to run. I opened my mouth to call out, "Hello." But my voice vanished into the thick air. Suddenly, I saw a small movement in my peripheral vision. I turned slowly, but no one was there. Just that shadow, growing larger, as if it was alive. Then the air thickened around me. I heard a whisper, soft but clear, "Come home." I shivered. My instincts kicked in. I turned and ran, but the feeling of being watched only intensified, as if something or someone was chasing me. I didn't stop until I reached my front door. The familiar surroundings felt wrong. My hands fumbled with the keys, they felt foreign. My heart pounded in my chest. I burst inside, slamming the door shut. I leaned against it, trying to catch my breath. That's when I heard it again. That laughter. It was right outside, echoing through the walls. Frantic, I turned to the window, heart in my throat. There she was again, staring straight at me. I felt sick. I knew that it was not just a vision or a ghost. It was my past, stalking me. I closed my eyes tightly, wishing it all away. But when I opened them, she was still there, smiling softly as if inviting me. I took a deep breath. I didn't know how to escape the echoes of my past, but I had to try. I ran to the back door. But before I could reach it, a hand touched my shoulder. I froze, feeling the icy grip. I turned around slowly, and there she was, no longer a figure behind glass, but standing right in front of me. "You're home now," she whispered, and I knew I was trapped. I stood frozen, her presence stealing away my breath. Time seemed to pause. I could hardly fathom how real she looked, how familiar yet utterly foreign. The warmth of my living room felt like a lie, and I was drowning in memories that weren't mine. "Who are you?" I managed to stutter, my voice shaking. I didn't expect an answer. The air crackled with tension. She smiled, but it wasn't comforting. "You know me." Her voice dripped with familiarity, echoing the laughter I had heard before. Suddenly, I felt as if I was back in college, sharing secrets late at night. But this was different. She was no longer just a friend, she was something more, something haunting. "Why are you here?" I barely whispered, sensing the walls closing in. Panic clawed at my throat. "Because you never left." Her words sent chills through me. They wrapped around me like icy fingers, squeezing tight. My mind raced. I suddenly felt the urge to flee, to escape this twisted version of my past. You shouldn't have come back, she continued, stepping closer. You belong here, with us. Us? I croaked, heart pounding. A sliver of fear sliced through my confusion. I couldn't comprehend what she meant. That laughter echoed again outside, sending a fresh wave of panic skimming through my veins. I can show you. She reached for my hand. I instinctively recoiled, though a part of me wanted to connect. You can't fight it. You've already started to remember. Her eyes glinted with something unsettling, and I was struck by the weird sense that she wasn't just my friend from college but somehow a piece of my own history. I was unearthing feelings that had long been buried beneath layers of time. Memories of laughter and friendship morphed into something sinister. The laughter outside grew louder, almost mocking. It felt like shadows were creeping through the walls, whispering secrets I wasn't ready to hear. You don't have to be afraid, she said, though I was terrified. I needed to run, to escape whatever was happening, but my feet felt glued to the floor. Why now? I managed to ask. Why are you doing this to me? Her expression softened, as if she might actually care. Because you left. You forgot what happened here. We need you, but it's up to you to remember. If you walk away, you'll never truly be free. The shadows shifted, and I thought I saw a flicker of something behind her, a glimpse of faces I recognized, faces I had pushed away. I was tangled up in an unseen web, trapped in this house that had become a mirror of my past. What happened? I pressed, desperate for clarity. But just as I gathered my thoughts, I felt the room shift. Suddenly, the lights flickered, plunging the room into darkness. A new chill filled the air. I couldn't hear her anymore, just the creeping laughter surrounding me. That sense of being watched intensified. Then everything went dark. I couldn't see her, but I could feel her presence. Panic bubbled to the surface, and I knew this was just the start of something far worse. I had to uncover the truth before it swallowed me whole. I stumbled back, trying to adjust to the darkness that enveloped me. My heart thudded in my chest, drowning out the laughter that was still echoing from somewhere. I strained to listen, hoping to hear a hint of where she had gone, but the sound had faded, leaving a heavy silence. I took a tentative step forward, my foot scraping against something. It felt cold, hard, a piece of furniture perhaps. I squinted, trying to catch any semblance of light, anything to guide me. The air had thickened, and the musty smell of the room pressed against me. Hello? I whispered, hoping for a response that wouldn't come. My voice was swallowed whole, disappearing into the void. I felt panic rising again, but I forced myself to breathe. I needed to find the light switch, to break this spell of darkness. My hands reached out, searching the rough texture of the wall. I felt a switch and flipped it, but nothing happened. Was the electricity out? Or was it something worse? That's when I saw it, a faint shimmer on the ground. My eyes adjusted, and I picked out a shape. It looked like a small mirror, cracked and dusty. I reached for it, feeling the cool surface beneath my fingers. The moment I touched it, a jolt shot through me. Images blurred into focus, faces, laughter, pain. What is this? I murmured, heart racing. With every heartbeat, memories crashed over me. I saw flashes of the past, moments I had tried to bury. Friends gathered, laughter shared, but there was an underlying tension that twisted it all. I saw myself in the middle of a group, their smiles a mask. They were so familiar yet utterly unknown, and something whispered in my mind, you don't belong here anymore. Suddenly, the darkness around me vibrated, a low hum that felt alive. I dropped the mirror, horror sinking in as the glass shattered. Shards scattered across the floor, and in the fleeting flashes of light from the fragments, I thought I saw her face again, watching me, her smile growing wider. I turned to run, but collided against something solid. Something loomed in the dark. My breath hitched as I desperately scrambled to regain my bearings. A shape lingered behind me, and goosebumps prickled along my arms. "Don't you remember?" The voice was soft, almost seductive. It wrapped around me, pulling me closer to its sinister comfort. "You were never meant to leave." I felt a warmth creep up my back, and instinct took over. I darted to the nearest wall, glancing back. Nothing was there, but the sense of dread hovered, thick and suffocating. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had been in this house was still watching me, waiting for me to uncover its secrets. I pressed my palms against the wall, grounding myself. If I wanted to escape, I had to confront whatever dark truth loomed in my past. With shaky resolve, I whispered to the empty room, "What do you want from me?" Just then, a low laugh echoed back, distant yet achingly close, and I knew I was spiraling deeper into a nightmare of my own making. I had to find the truth and fast before the shadows closed in entirely. I couldn't sit still. The air felt electric, as if the darkness was alive and waiting. I forced myself to take a breath, to remain as calm as possible, but it was hard. I needed a way out of this house, a way to cut through the confusion and fear that clung to me like a heavy fog. I turned slowly, scanning the room. My eyes caught movement, a shadow marring the far wall, flickering just out of reach of my sight. Something within me urged me to move towards it. Despite every instinct telling me to flee, I took a hesitant step forward. I squinted into the darkness, every muscle tense, ready to bolt if necessary. As I approached the shadow, I realized it wasn't just a figment of my imagination. A doorway loomed behind it, half hidden and brimming with darkness even thicker than in the main room. I knew that stepping through would lead me deeper into the unknown, but there was something almost inviting about it. Curiosity pushed me forward. The air shifted as I moved closer, almost tasting the dampness seeping through the cracks of the old wood. The faintest glimmer caught my eye, and I knelt down, brushing away more dust to reveal a faded, ornate handle. My hand shook as I reached for it. Just as my fingers closed around the cool metal, a sharp hiss punctured the silence, making me jerk back. The door creaked open slightly, revealing a sliver of what lay beyond. A familiar scent wafted out, sweet yet acrid, like burnt sugar. I hesitated. My heart raced as I placed one foot in front of the other, forcing myself to peer inside. I stepped through and found myself in a narrow corridor lined with photographs. Each frame held a smiling face, people I recognized but couldn't quite place. My pulse quickened. They looked so happy, so carefree, but unease settled in my stomach. I could feel their eyes following me, probing into my very soul. I passed one photo, then another. "What is this?" I whispered to the empty hallway, feeling more lost than ever. Suddenly, a voice echoed from somewhere down the hall, soft and purposeful. "Come home," it beckoned, weaving through the air like smoke. I could feel it pulling at me, urging me to come closer. Goosebumps crawled up my skin. The voice was different now, not the soft whisper I'd heard before, but something deeper, more insistent. Driven by instinct, I followed the sound, heart hammering in my chest. The hallway twisted and turned, leading me further into darkness. Every photograph cursed me silently as I passed, and the voices began to rise, overlapping and swirling together like a chaotic symphony. Then, at the end of the hallway, I glimpsed her face again, clearer this time, as if she had stepped from the shadows. Her smile was radiant, yet the darkness lingered at the edges. "You're finally here," she said, her voice welcoming yet chilling. I froze, caught between fight and flight. I could feel the darkness creeping close, wrapping around me like an old friend. I took a small step back, the reality of what I was experiencing weighing down on me. I had to find out what she wanted, and why I felt so tied to this place, but standing in front of her, I felt the walls closing in. "Wait!" I shouted, conviction overtaking my fear. "Why are you doing this?" Just then, the air around me shifted violently, and the distant laughter erupted into a cacophony of noise, drowning out my words. I was losing control, and the weight of the anticipation bore down. Something was about to happen, and I was right in the center of it all. I stumbled back, my heart racing at the swell of chaos. The laughter, once distant and teasing, now sounded like it was right in my ear, piercing through the terror. I needed to escape. I turned to run, but the corridor shifted, the walls bending and warping before my eyes. Images flickered in the shadows, faces contorting into expressions of sorrow and joy, their kindness turning sinister. I caught glimpses of my own face, among them a specter of my past I never wanted to see again. Panic tightened my throat. I couldn't let them consume me, not now. Come back. We want to show you. One of the voices called, a high-pitched delight that set my nerves on fire. It rippled through the air like a cruel taunt. I pressed forward, desperate to escape the laughter that grew louder and more urgent. Then everything went still, as if the world held its breath. I reached the end of the corridor, realizing it led into a dim room. The walls were bare, adorned only with a single, cracked mirror. My reflection stared back at me, wild-eyed and terrified. I hesitated, feeling a surge of dread. Suddenly, the mirror shimmered, swirling like water disturbed. A scene unfolded in its depths, an echo of the past. I saw myself, younger and full of life, walking down the same streets I traveled daily. Familiar sights flashed by, but each one warped into something dark and twisted. It was as if I was watching my own life unravel. Remember? The voice called again, softer now, almost a whisper. You invited us in. The memory struck hard, invading my mind like a thief. I had once laughed and celebrated this very street, I'd forgotten how light once danced in my life. But along with the laughter came shadows I had tried to ignore. A door I once opened that I thought had closed for good. Before I could process it, my reflection morphed into the woman from the photographs. Her eyes gleamed as she beckoned. It's time to return, she said, the darkness curling behind her like smoke. The others are waiting. I backed away, the wall pressing against me like a vice. No. I want to go back. I felt the walls closing in, oppressive and suffocating. But the mirror's surface rippled, and all at once, I was drawn closer. A current pulled at me as if the very air wanted to swallow me whole. Then I heard a low growl, echoing from the depths of the mirror. It was more than a voice, it felt like a threat, gathering power, eager to break free. In one frantic motion, I swiveled around, bolting back down the corridor. I could feel the weight of unseen hands grasping at my clothes, fingers grazing my skin. I ran faster, adrenaline surging, desperation driving me. As I reached the door that led back into the main room, the air thickened, almost solid. With one final push, I burst through, feeling the stranglehold of the darkness release. But my relief was short-lived. The laughter followed me, echoing, reverberating in the air. That's when I saw a dark figure standing in the doorway of the corridor, watching me. I froze, dread flooding my veins. The face was hidden beneath the shadows, but I could feel its gaze piercing through me. My breath caught in my throat. I wasn't alone. Welcome back, it hissed softly, and every instinct told me to run. But there was nowhere left to hide. I backed away slowly, my heart pounding. The figure remained motionless, an ominous silhouette against the dim light. I tried to peer into the shadows, but it felt like looking into an endless abyss. My hands trembled at my sides, itching to pull my phone from my pocket, but I feared the figure would leap at the slightest movement. What do you want? I whispered, my voice barely a tremor. My throat felt dry, like I hadn't spoken in days. The figure stepped forward, gradually revealing more of itself. It wore a long dark coat that swallowed any hint of color. Its face was still obscured, a blur of darkness where features should have been. We want to help you remember, it rasped. A cold chill seeped into my bones. I wanted to scream, to turn and flee, but my feet felt glued to the spot. Remember what? I managed to ask, though I was afraid of the answer. The laughter returned, more pronounced now, a cacophony that echoed through the room. Each note felt taunting, a reminder of something I wasn't ready to face. The past is never truly gone, it murmured. It lingers, waiting for the right moment. I tried to grasp some common sense in the madness. Waiting for what? Each word tasted bitter as I forced them out. Waiting for you to acknowledge it, the voice replied, each word deliberate and slow. You wanted to forget, but now you are family. You are part of us. The finality in that statement struck deep. I could feel a lump form in my throat. No, I'm not part of anything, I protested weakly. I don't know you. The figure tilted its head, as though considering my words. You invite us into your life with every choice you make. It stepped closer, the light dimming further. Now it is time for you to decide. I gasped, breaking the spell that held me. In a flash, I turned and charged back toward the corridor, driven by pure instinct. I could feel the air pressure shift behind me, a wave of energy that threatened to swallow me whole. The laughter surged, a haunting crescendo echoing in my ears, pushing me forward. Just as I reached for the door handle, a sharp pain shot through my side as something warm brushed against me. I stumbled, the world spinning. I glanced down, horrified to see dark tendrils wrapping around my ankle, pulling me back. I kicked desperately, but they tightened, anchoring me in place. Join us, the figure beckoned, its voice a ghostly whisper that finally revealed its face, melting from the shadow. There she was, the woman from the photographs, her eyes deeply unsettling. You don't have to fight us. Panic surged anew. Let me go. I screamed, but the laughter elevated into a chorus of sinister glee, drowning my cries. I looked around, desperate for an escape, but the darkness felt endless. Then, in the flickering light, I caught sight of the cracked mirror behind the figure. My heart raced as I recalled the reflection that had beckoned moments before I ran. The thought of it seized me. What if I faced it? I wondered, a tremor of courage threading through my fear. Let me go, and I'll confront my past. I shouted. I knew it was a gamble, but it was a distraction, a shot at survival. To my surprise, the figure paused. Do you truly wish to remember the truth? Just then, another sound echoed from the darkness. A shattering of glass rang sharper than any laughter. I turned wide-eyed as the mirror fractured, sending shards flying in all directions. The last thing I heard was the figure's cruel laughter as the world dissolved into darkness around me. And then, everything turned cold. I woke up in a disoriented haze, cold and alone. I was lying on a hard surface that felt unnaturally smooth. My body ached, and as I sat up, reality crashed over me like a wave. I gasped, taking in my surroundings, an empty room, dimly lit by flickering fluorescent lights. The air felt stale as if it hadn't been disturbed in ages. My heart raced. Was I alone? I glanced around, searching for any sign of movement. The walls were lined with faded wallpaper, peeling at the edges, and scattered debris littered the floor. Hello? I called out, my voice trembling. Silence answered me, but a gnawing sense of dread wormed its way into my gut. Without thinking, I stood up and immediately regretted it. A jolt of pain shot through my side. I looked down, noticing the remnants of dark tendrils still clinging to my ankle, faded now but not gone. They dissipated into the air, leaving a lingering chill. I needed to find a way out. I glanced toward a door at the far end of the room, slightly ajar. Summoning every bit of courage I had left, I limped toward it. Each step echoed off the walls, amplifying the unsettling emptiness around me. The door creaked loudly as I pushed it open. My heart raced again, fear tightening its grip on my chest. On the other side was a narrow hallway that seemed to stretch endlessly into darkness. I hesitated, peering into the black, trying to gauge what lay ahead. Then I heard the faint sound of whispering, a soft murmur that sent chills down my spine. It was familiar yet indistinct. I couldn't make out the words, but it felt like they were calling me, urging me to move forward. I took a deep breath and stepped into the hallway, pushing my fear aside. The whispers grew louder, a discordant symphony brushing against my ears. Each pulse of sound resonated within me as if it were igniting buried memories. Suddenly, a flicker of recognition washed over me. I had been here before. I rounded a corner, and it hit me, this hallway, these walls. No, no, I whispered in disbelief. This can't be happening. A wave of déjà vu crashed over me, confusing my senses. There it was again. I remembered another time I felt this way, another dark place filled with whispers that felt insistent, beckoning my attention. I pressed on, desperate to escape the spiral of confusion. At the end of the hallway, I found a large window. The glass was grimy, making it hard to see outside, but I could make out shapes moving beyond the fog. Figures, fleeting and shadowy, moved in and out of view, slipping just out of reach when I tried to focus on them. Help! I shouted, pressing my hands against the cold glass. Can anyone hear me? The figures paused, as if my voice had rooted them in place. In that moment, I thought I saw a face emerge, one that was disconcertingly familiar. I stepped back, my breath quickening. That face, locking eyes with mine, felt like a key to my answers. Who are you? But before I could grasp the vision further, the glass shattered with a deafening crash, sending shards raining down like heavy snow. I stumbled back, shock coursing through me, and the whispers grew into frenzied chants. Everything around me faded as I dashed away from the chaos, the hallway warping and twisting. Then I stopped. I had to remember. I had to face this. That S when I saw it, the reflection staring back at me from a piece of broken glass. My own face, but twisted in fear, trapped in a dark memory that dared to pull me in. I felt trapped in that moment, suspended between the horror of what I had seen and the haunting echoes around me. Instinctively, I reached for my ankle, checking for those dark tendrils, but they were gone. My heart slammed against my ribcage, drowning out the whispers. I needed to get out of there. With determination, I moved away from the broken glass, the sharp glint reflecting my fear as I turned back into the hallway. The oppressive darkness still loomed, but I focused on the small pinprick of light at the far end, deeply desperate for an escape. As I advanced, the whispers morphed into words, forming sentences I couldn't quite decipher. It was like a message from the past, teasing me yet just beyond comprehension. I strained my ears, but every time I thought I caught a phrase, it shifted back into a murmur. It was maddening. I stumbled into another room, my foot catching on something in the dim light. I fell to my knees, the cold floor jolting through me. When I looked down, I saw a small box half buried in the debris. It was old and covered in dust, but something about it called to me, magnifying the urgency swirling inside me. With trembling fingers, I pried the box open. Inside were faded photographs, their edges frayed and curling. I flipped through them, and my breath caught in my throat. Each image was a memory I couldn't fully grasp. Faces smiled back at me, but they were all unfamiliar, yet my heart knew them, each connection threading back to the whispers that surrounded me. Then something slipped from the box and hit the floor with a soft thud. It was a small pendant, tarnished with age. I picked it up, a sudden warmth spreading through my fingers, almost as if it had a heartbeat of its own. I examined it closer, the engraved symbols felt familiar, igniting a buried spark of recognition. Why do I know this? I muttered, feeling the pendant pull me into another past I could barely remember. I glanced around, feeling watched. The shadows seemed to congeal, forming shapes that made my skin prickle. Get out! A voice suddenly shouted, ripping through the hush of the room. I spun around, my heart racing, scanning for the source. Go! They're coming! My breath hitched in panic. I needed to move. I stuffed the pendant in my pocket, grabbing the box as I rose, ready to flee back into the hallway. But as I turned, there stood that face from the window, manifesting before me, clearer now than ever. "Who are you?" I wanted to scream, but the words caught in my throat, paralyzed by shock. The face remained silent, its expression a mix of fear and urgency, as if warning me of something I still couldn't understand. Then, with a sudden rush, the walls shook, and the whispers became a roar. I had no choice. I darted past the figure, desperate for any way out, the echoes of my own footsteps competing against the chaos closing in around me. I raced toward the exit, but as I neared, the ground trembled violently beneath me. I stumbled, and the exit door started to shift away, merging into the wall. I could feel the walls tightening around me, and all I could think was that I had to escape before it was too late. I pushed myself harder, adrenaline coursing through my veins. The exit door seemed to mock my efforts, fading further into the wall. Panic clawed at my chest. I couldn't let this place swallow me whole. Just when I thought all hope was gone, I spotted a darkened doorway to my right. It was small and half hidden behind a stack of old furniture. I couldn't hesitate. I veered off course, plunging into the doorway, hoping it led somewhere else. The moment I stepped in, I was enveloped by a heavier darkness. I squinted, trying to make sense of my surroundings. There was barely a sliver of light filtering in from somewhere, casting strange shadows that seemed to dance and swirl ominously. My heart thudded heavily, every sound magnified in this silence. I reached out, my fingers brushing against the rough wall, and I could feel a sense of something lurking just beyond my sight. "Keep moving," I told myself, pushing forward. There was a sense that time was slipping away. After a few cautious steps, I stumbled across an old chair, its fabric threadbare and faded. I ran my hand along it, memories bubbling to the surface of my mind like a boiling pot. I flipped it around and noticed something scratched into the wood beneath the seat. I leaned in closer and could barely make out letters that looked like initials. D.A.M. I whispered, wondering if it meant something. But as I glanced around, feeling an urgent tingle creeping up my spine, I realized I wasn't alone. The whispers had returned, louder this time, crashing over me like waves, but this time I made out a few words. "Don't stay danger." I turned quickly, desperate to escape this space, but the chair screeched against the floor, echoing against the walls. Heart racing, I rushed for the far wall, hoping to find an exit or maybe a window. But as I did, the shadows shifted, and I caught a fleeting glimpse of a figure darting at the corner of my vision. "Who is there?" I shouted, my voice breaking the quiet. I peered into the dimness, squinting to see through the darkness. My breath caught when the figure slowed, revealing that familiar face, half hidden in the shadows, still watching me with that same fearful expression. "Help!" I cried, reaching out to them, but they only shook their heads slowly, their eyes wide as if they were pleading for me to understand something crucial. They opened their mouth, but I couldn't hear anything over the thrumming whispers, rising in a frantic crescendo. "Please!" I begged, stepping closer. But before I could grasp the urgency in their eyes, the floor beneath me shook violently once more, a fierce tremor that sent me crashing down. I hit the ground hard, the wooden plank splintering under my weight, and suddenly, the lights flickered and went out completely. Everything turned pitch black. My heart pounded in the void. I was utterly alone, saved from the figure, yet trapped within my encroaching fears. I had to get up, to keep moving. But as I pushed myself onto my knees, a chilling realization washed over me. I could hear footsteps approaching, slow and deliberate in the darkness. Someone or something was coming. The footsteps grew nearer, echoing ominously in the pitch black. I held my breath, the air thick with impending dread. The whispers grew louder in response, blurring my thoughts, making it harder to think clearly. Time seemed to stretch as I clawed my way back to my feet, heart pounding in my ears. There had to be a way out. I took a cautious step forward, hoping to find a wall or a door, anything to guide me through the dark. But the floor creaked beneath me, and I feared the shadows were alive, hungry for my fear. I groped around, hoping to feel the reassuring solidity of the wall. Instead, my fingers brushed against something cold and smooth metal. A door handle. I twisted it, and to my relief, it opened with a soft click. I pushed through, half expecting the darkness to swallow me whole, but instead, I stumbled into a small room bathed in dim light. Panic and hope flickered within me. The walls were splattered with photos, just like the hallway. Faces surrounded me, some familiar, some not. Each pair of eyes seemed to watch my every move, creepy and haunting. I caught sight of the figure again, just a glimpse in the corner of the room. It was her again, my friend, smiling in one of those photos, but her smile seemed unsettling, a bait luring me in. "Why?" I whispered, my voice cracking. "What do you want from me?" From the shadows, I felt an answer rise like a current. "You need to remember you belong here," a voice echoed back, and I spun, expecting to see the figure. Instead, it was the mirror in the room, dark and reflective, rippling like a body of water. A deep sense of déjà vu crashed over me. I was forced to confront the moment before I tried to escape. I couldn't run anymore, there was nowhere left to flee. I knelt before the mirror, my breathing shallow, searching its depths. In the reflection, young, vibrant faces blended together behind mine. I felt something clawing at me, pulling me deeper into memories, those precious fragments that had been submerged. "Face what you've buried," the voice beckoned, urging me to confront not just them, but myself. "You chose to forget, but we need you." Images burst forth from my submerged thoughts: laughter, a party, a gathering of friends, drinks flowing, innocence cascading in waves of joy. But then, something else lingered below the surface, dark clouds tarnishing the joy with tension, a hidden secret. I saw my reflection morph, connecting to those memories. Zoned in on one photo, I blinked as my heart raced. The eyes staring back at me weren't just familiar, they were mine, but aged, warped, as if the happiness had been forcibly replaced by every choice I made to run away. Each smile turned sinister, the whispers swelled louder, mocking my reality. Then I realized, it wasn't just a game, nor a haunting. It was a reckoning. "I can't go back," I uttered, shaking my head, resisting the urge to pull back from the truth. The shadows encircled me, claws begging me to relent. "You must," the figure echoed, emerging from the corner. "If you don't face us, you'll remain trapped forever. We need you to break free." I felt the walls squeeze tighter, and suddenly, I was thrust into the heart of it. "No!" I yelled, but my words ricocheted around me, the laughter deafening. The energy swirled like a tempest, threatening to consume me. I fought the instinct to retreat, faced with the consequences of my past decisions. The visions returned, my friends, their eyes hollow and devoid of light, whispering their truths. "You left. You abandoned us," they chorused, echoing my fears. "You chose to forget." Tears stung my eyes as I confronted the ache of who I'd severed ties with, who I'd left behind. The darkness rushed toward me, but suddenly, it all shifted. I recognized that this was not just a haunting but a reckoning. "Fine," I gasped, feeling the weight of their grief press against me. "I'm here. I see you." In that declaration, the storm abetted, the shadows released me, peeling back like layers from an onion until access to the brightest light shimmered before me. With the yearning for release, I stepped forward. Again, my feet moving closer to the mirror. This was my moment to reflect, to reconnect with the friends, the history I'd renounced. As I stood tall, I felt the room shift with newfound energy. Freedom pulsed as the whirlpool around me receded. I felt warmth settle around me, rising above the whispers. "We remember you now, you remember too." And with that, the mirror shattered. I closed my eyes against the bright light that surged forward, rebirthing memories once forgotten, echoing long-ignored laughter. Suddenly, I awoke again, the throbbing resonance of life flooding my senses, a new day greeting me. I realized I was back in my own room, untouched by previous terror, though the weight of those memories remained. I moved to the window, a newfound sense of understanding washing over me. I glanced out, scanning the familiar streets of Maple Avenue, my heart heavy but lightened. I would never be alone again. But questions lingered: had I truly escaped, or would the weight of those memories forever reshape me? I looked beyond my window at the families and friends bonding down the street, shadows lingering, just beyond the precipice of my awareness. They weren't gone, nor was the laughter. I realized then, it was my choice how to remember, how to move forward. And in the back of my mind, a shadow still whispered, a reminder that some echoes of the past might never fully fade away. I moved to a different city after that. Sometimes I wonder if my neighbor is still there, if those things still happen. But mostly I try not to think about it.